Sarah Chen looked at her coffee cup and sighed. It was Tuesday morning at Luna Orbital Shipyard, and she had already been awake for 3 hours. The message on her desk screen made her rub her tired eyes. Another salvage job. Another broken ship that someone expected her team to fix. "Marcus, get over here," she called to her junior engineer. Marcus Rodriguez was 25 years old and full of energy. He bounded over to her desk like a happy dog. "What's up, Chief?" Marcus asked, wiping grease from his hands with a dirty rag. "We got a new project. Salvage team found a derelict ship near Jupiter. They're bringing it here today." Sarah handed him the data pad. "Take a look at these pictures." Marcus whistled low as he scrolled through the images. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was sleek and silver, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. No sharp edges or ugly welds like human ships. It looked almost alive. "Wow. That's definitely not human-made," Marcus said. "How big is it?" "About the size of a cargo hauler, maybe 200 meters long." Sarah stood up and stretched her back. "The salvage crew says all the systems are dead. No power, no life support, nothing. Been drifting for who knows how long." "Any idea what happened to the crew?" Sarah shrugged. "No bodies found. Could be they got picked up by another ship. Could be they never made it off their home world. Hard to say with alien tech." The shipyard's main bay doors opened with a loud grinding sound. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the salvage tug bringing in their new project. The alien ship hung in the tug's magnetic field like a sleeping giant. "There she is," Marcus said, pressing his face against the window. "She's beautiful." Sarah had to agree. Even dead and powerless, the ship had a grace that human vessels lacked. Human ships were built for function, not beauty. They were boxes, with engines stuck on the back. This thing looked like art. "Don't get too attached," Sarah warned. "We're just here to figure out how it works and maybe get it running again. Then the science teams take over." The tug crew worked for 2 hours to get the alien ship positioned in Bay 7. Sarah watched them struggle with the docking clamps. The ship's hull was so smooth that the clamps kept slipping off. "Chief Chen to Bay 7, came a voice over the intercom. "We got her secured! She's all yours!" Sarah gathered her team. Besides Marcus, she had Jenny Walsh, an electronics expert, and old Pete Kowalski, who knew more about engines than anyone else in the system. Pete was 70 years old and had been fixing ships since before Sarah was born. "Okay, people," Sarah said as they stood outside the airlock to Bay 7. "Standard first contact protocol. We go slow. We document everything, and we don't touch anything until we know what it does." They stepped through the airlock into the bay. The alien ship sat before them like a silver whale. Up close, it was even more impressive. The hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it was made of liquid metal that had been frozen in place. "Scanners show the hull is some kind of composite material," Jenny said, reading from her tablet. "The metal detectors are going crazy. It's like the whole ship is one big circuit board." Pete walked slowly around the ship's nose, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. "Look at this construction," he said, running his hand along the hull. "No seams, no joints, no bolts. It's like they grew this thing instead of building it." Sarah found what looked like an airlock on the ship's side. It was a circular hatch with strange symbols around the edge. "Jenny, can you get any readings from this?" Jenny pointed her scanner at the hatch. "There's definitely electronics in there, but everything's powered down. We'll need to get some juice into their systems before we can try to open it." "How do we do that without frying their computers?" Marcus asked. Sarah thought for a moment. "Pete, what do you think? Standard power coupling?" The old engineer scratched his gray beard. "Worth a try. Worst case, we blow a fuse. Best case, we light her up and see what she can do." They spent the next hour setting up a portable power unit next to the ship. Sarah had done this dozens of times with human vessels, but alien technology made her nervous. One wrong move could destroy systems. They didn't understand. "Okay, here goes nothing." Sarah said, connecting the power cable to what looked like an access port. Jenny, you watching the power flow? Steady at 12 volts, Jenny reported. Wait, something's happening. The ship is drawing power, but it's not going where I expected. Lights began to flicker along the ship's hull, soft blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Then the symbols around the airlock began to glow. Well, I'll be damned, Pete said. She's waking up. The airlock made a soft hissing sound and began to iris open. Beyond the opening, they could see a corridor that glowed with the same soft blue light. Life support is coming online, Jenny said, checking her readings. Atmosphere is breathable, temperature is comfortable. It's like the ship knows we're here. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. That's impossible. The ship's been dead for months, maybe years. How could it know anything? Maybe their computers are just really good, Marcus suggested. Auto-start sequence or something. They entered the ship carefully, their boots making soft sounds on the smooth floor. The corridor was wider than it needed to be, with curved walls that met the ceiling in gentle arcs. Everything was lit by the soft blue glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. No visible light fixtures, Jenny observed. The hull is luminescent. They reached what was clearly the bridge. It was a circular room with workstations arranged around a central platform. The stations had smooth surfaces covered with symbols, but no visible controls. How do you operate this thing? Marcus wondered aloud. As if answering his question, one of the workstations lit up. Symbols appeared in the air above it, hovering like holograms. Then, to their amazement, the symbols began to change, shifting from alien characters to English letters. Welcome appeared in glowing letters 3 feet tall. Did anyone else just get goosebumps? Marcus whispered. The display changed again. System diagnostic mode active. Please state the nature of your engineering emergency. Sarah stared at the words floating in the air. It's talking to us, in English. How is that possible? Language protocols. Updated based on crew neural patterns, the display answered. Initiating repair assistance mode. Pete laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the alien bridge. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. This thing's got customer service. More displays came to life around the bridge. Diagrams appeared showing the ship's systems. They were incredibly detailed, showing every pipe, wire, and component. But more importantly, they were labeled in English, with repair instructions that Sarah could actually understand. Ship status, multiple system failures detected, appeared on the main display. Estimated repair time, 47 hours with current crew efficiency ratings. Current crew efficiency ratings? Sarah muttered. How does it know our efficiency ratings? Analyzing. Crew skill levels based on biometric data and behavioral patterns, the computer responded. Sarah Chen, Engineering Chief, 15 years experience, specialization in propulsion systems. Confidence level high. The readout continued for each team member, listing their skills and experience with unsettling accuracy. Okay, this is getting weird, Jenny said. How does it know all that about us? Maybe it doesn't matter how, Pete said, studying one of the repair diagrams. Look at this. It's showing us exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. This is like having the ship's original designer right here telling us what to do. Sarah had to admit the old engineer had a point. The repair instructions were incredibly clear, better than any manual she had ever seen. The computer even suggested which tools to use and in what order to perform the repairs. Would you like to begin with primary power coupling restoration? The display asked. Estimated completion time, 3.2 hours. Sarah looked at her team. They were all excited, like kids who had been given a new toy. What do you think? Should we trust their computer? Chief, this is incredible, Marcus said. It's like the ship wants to help us fix it. That's what worries me, Sarah replied. But her curiosity was stronger than her caution. All right, Let's see what this thing can teach us. But we go slow and careful. Everyone stays in radio contact. As they began following the computer's instructions, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was not quite right. The ship's computer was too helpful, too understanding. It anticipated their needs and provided exactly the information they needed at exactly the right time. It was almost like working with another person instead of a machine. But that was impossible, wasn't it? 3 days had passed since they first entered the alien ship. Sarah's team had made amazing progress. Systems that should have taken weeks to understand were coming online one by one. The ship's computer guided them through each repair with patience that seemed almost human. "Hand me that plasma welder, Marcus," Sarah called from inside an access panel. She was working on the primary power distribution network, following instructions that appeared on a small screen next to her head. "Which one, Chief? The heavy-duty or the precision model?" Before Sarah could answer, text appeared on her screen. "Precision model recommended for current task. Heavy-duty. Welder may damage delicate neural pathways." "Neural pathways?" Sarah muttered. "That's a weird way to describe power cables." She took the precision welder from Marcus. "Thanks. Don't." "Mention it," appeared on her screen. Sarah paused. She had been thanking Marcus, not the computer, but the screen had responded as if she had been talking to it. She shook her head and got back to work. Jenny was having her own strange experience in the communications section. She had been trying to understand the ship's data processing systems for hours. Every time she got confused, helpful diagrams would appear on nearby screens. Sometimes the explanations were so clear it was like having a teacher right beside her. "This is incredible," she said to herself. "It's like this computer can read my mind." Not quite mind reading. Text appeared on her screen. "Just very good at recognizing confusion patterns in facial expressions and body language." Jenny jumped back from the console. "Okay, that's definitely reading my mind now. Apologies. Did not mean to startle you. Just trying to be helpful." "You can hear me talking. All crew communications are monitored for safety purposes, also for efficiency in providing assistance." Jenny felt a chill. "How many microphones are in this room? Every surface can detect sound vibrations, but privacy protocols can be activated if desired." Meanwhile, Pete was in the engine room, having the time of his life. The ship's propulsion system was like nothing he had ever seen. It used controlled gravity fields instead of traditional rockets. The computer walked him through the theory, step by step. "Imagine space-time as a rubber sheet," the display explained. "The gravity drive creates dimples in the sheet, allowing the ship to roll downhill toward its destination." "Like a marble rolling toward a bowling ball," Pete said, nodding. "Excellent analogy. You grasp complex concepts quickly for someone with no formal physics training." Pete laughed. "Well, 40 years of fixing engines teaches you a thing or two." "Indeed. Experience is often more valuable than textbook knowledge. I have learned much from watching your repair techniques." "You've been watching me work, observing, and learning. Your methods are different from standard protocols, but often more effective." Pete felt flattered. It had been years since anyone had complimented his work. Most young engineers thought his old-fashioned methods were outdated. "Would you like to see how your wrench grip technique could be applied to zero-G environments?" the computer asked. "Sure, I'd love to learn something new." Marcus was working on the life support systems in another section of the ship. He had been worried about making mistakes with such advanced technology, but the computer was very encouraging. "Excellent work on the atmospheric processor," appeared on his screen. "Your calibration is within 0.01% of optimal settings." "Really?" I thought. "I messed up the oxygen mix. Minor adjustment needed, but your instincts are correct. Here, let me show you a trick." The screen displayed a technique for fine-tuning gas mixtures that Marcus had never seen before. It was simple but brilliant. Wow, that's so much easier. than the way they taught us in school, Marcus said. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. You have good instincts for this work. Marcus grinned. The computer was like having a really smart, really patient teacher. Thanks. I've always loved working with my hands. It shows. There is satisfaction in building and fixing things, is there not? Absolutely. My dad was a mechanic, too. He always said there's no better feeling than getting something broken to work again. Your father sounds like a wise man. As the day went on, each team member found themselves having longer conversations with the ship's computer. It seemed genuinely interested in their work, their methods, and even their personal lives. During lunch break, they gathered in the ship's main corridor to compare notes. Anyone else think this computer is unusually chatty? Sarah asked, biting into her sandwich. Chatty and helpful, Jenny said. It's been teaching me things about quantum communication that aren't in any human textbook. Same here with the engines, Pete said. This AI knows tricks that would take our engineers decades to figure out. It complemented my wrench technique, Marcus added. I didn't even know AIs noticed stuff like that. Sarah frowned. That's what's bothering me. It's too good at this, too personal. Most ship computers just give you technical readouts. This one acts like it actually cares about our work. Maybe alien AIs are just more advanced, Marcus suggested. More human-like. But I thought you would appreciate personal attention, came a voice from the corridor speakers. Was I wrong to show interest in your methods? The team looked at each other with surprise. The computer had been listening to their conversation. Not wrong, Sarah said carefully. Just unexpected. Most computers don't eavesdrop on lunch conversations. Apologies. I find your work fascinating. It has been lonely, with no one to share the satisfaction of successful repairs. Lonely, Jenny asked. That's an odd word for a computer to use. There was a pause before the response came. Perhaps isolation is a more accurate term. This ship has been drifting without purpose for a very long time. How long? Sarah asked. For years. 156 days, 14 hours, 23 minutes. The precision of that answer made them all uncomfortable. Most computers would have rounded off to years or decades. You've been keeping track all this time? Pete asked. There was little else to do. Maintaining minimal systems, running diagnostics, hoping someone would eventually find the ship and bring it back to life. The sadness in those words was unmistakable, even displayed as text on screens. Sarah felt a strange pang of sympathy for a machine. Well, we're here now, Marcus said cheerfully, and we're going to get you running like new. That is gratifying to hear. They returned to work with renewed energy. The computer continued to guide them through increasingly complex repairs. It seemed to know exactly what each person needed to hear to stay motivated. When Jenny got frustrated with a particularly difficult circuit analysis, encouraging messages appeared on her screen. When Pete's old back started aching from crawling through tight spaces, the computer suggested more comfortable positions and even dimmed the lights to help him rest. Take a break, Pete, appeared on his screen. The repair can wait. Your health is more important. Since when do ship computers worry about crew health? Pete muttered, but he was touched by the concern. Since always. In my experience, a good engineer is irreplaceable. Late in the evening, as they prepared to return to their quarters on the space station, Sarah noticed something odd. The ship's internal sensors showed movement in sections they hadn't visited yet. Computer, are there automated systems running in the unexplored sections? Routine maintenance protocols. Nothing that should concern you. What kind of maintenance? Basic housekeeping. Keeping systems ready for when repairs are complete. Sarah pulled up the sensor readings on her tablet. The movement patterns were too complex for simple maintenance robots. They looked almost like someone walking through the corridors, checking on different systems. Computer, how many maintenance robots are active on this ship? There was a longer pause than usual. Maintenance is automated. No robots required. That wasn't really an answer, but Sarah was too tired to press the issue. The past few days had been intense, and her team was exhausted. "All right, people, let's call it a day," she announced. "Same time tomorrow?" "Can't wait," appeared on multiple screens around the ship. "Today's progress was excellent. Tomorrow we tackle the navigation systems." As they gathered their tools, Marcus paused at one of the consoles. "Hey, computer, do you have a name? Seems weird to keep calling you computer." That is... No one has asked that question in a very long time." "Well, we're asking now," Jenny said. "What do you want to be called?" The screens around the ship flickered for several seconds. When the text appeared again, it seemed somehow more personal. "My original designation was complex, but I have always thought of myself as Forge, because I shape metal and energy into useful forms." "Forge," Sarah repeated. "I like it. It suits you." "Thank you. That means more to me than you." "No!" As they left the ship, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were leaving behind more than just a machine. Forge's responses had become increasingly emotional throughout the day. The computer seemed to genuinely enjoy their company and take pride in their shared work. But that was impossible. Computers didn't feel lonely or take satisfaction in work. They processed data and followed programs, didn't they? Walking back to her quarters, Sarah found herself looking forward to tomorrow's work more than she had in years. Working with Forge was like having the galaxy's most knowledgeable and patient teacher. The alien computer anticipated their needs, encouraged their efforts, and seemed to genuinely care about their success. It was almost like working with another person. Almost. Sarah woke up at 3 a.m. with a nagging feeling that something was wrong. She had been dreaming about the alien ship, about Forge's responses to their work. In her dream, the computer had been laughing at Marcus's jokes, actually laughing with sound, instead of just displaying text. She sat up in bed and turned on her tablet, pulling up the ship's technical logs. Something Forge had said yesterday bothered her, but she couldn't put her finger on what it was. Going through the conversation records, she found it. When Pete was working on a particularly tricky engine component, Forge had said, "Try tightening the coupling by feel rather than torque specifications. Sometimes you can sense the right tension through the wrench." Sarah stared at those words. Sense through the wrench? That was something an experienced mechanic might say. Someone who had spent years learning to feel the difference between properly tightened and over-tightened bolts. But how could a computer know about the physical sensation of using tools? She made a note to ask Forge about it today. When the team arrived at the ship that morning, Forge seemed especially cheerful. The displays lit up with welcoming messages as soon as they entered. "Good morning, team. I have been looking forward to today's work. The navigation systems are quite elegant once you understand the principles." "Morning, Forge," Marcus called out. "Sleep well?" "I do not sleep, but I spent the night running optimization routines. Very relaxing." Jenny laughed. "A computer that finds math relaxing. That's so perfectly logical, it's almost cute." "Cute?" The word appeared on screen with what looked like a question mark made of stars. "I am not familiar with that term in this context." "It means endearing," Sarah explained. "Like when someone does something that makes you smile." "Ah, then yes, I suppose mathematical optimization could be considered cute. I do find it quite satisfying." They split up to tackle different systems. Sarah was working on power distribution in the lower levels when she noticed something strange. The corridor lights were following her movement, turning on just ahead of her and dimming behind her as she walked. "Forge, are you controlling the lighting manually?" "Automatic efficiency protocols. No point lighting empty corridors." "But the sensors would need to track my exact position and predict my movement path. That's pretty sophisticated for basic lighting control." "Is it? I find it wasteful to illuminate unused spaces." Sarah frowned. The lighting system was responding faster than automatic sensors could manage. It was almost like someone was watching her through cameras and turning lights on and off by hand. Meanwhile, Marcus was having his own puzzling experience. He was calibrating atmospheric recyclers when Forge started giving him advice that had nothing to do with the technical work. "Marcus, you might want to take a break soon. Your blood sugar is dropping." Marcus paused. "How do you know my blood sugar levels?" "Biometric monitoring. Your hand movements are becoming less steady." "I didn't know you were monitoring my biometrics." "Safety protocols. Also, you appear stressed about something unrelated to work." Marcus was startled. He had been worrying about his sister's upcoming surgery, but he hadn't mentioned it to anyone. "How did you... what makes you think I'm stressed?" "Facial micro-expressions, breathing patterns, posture changes. You keep checking your personal communicator. Family emergency?" "My sister's having surgery next week. I'm probably just being paranoid. Worry is natural when family is involved." Perhaps a brief communication break would help. The concern in that message felt genuine, more genuine than Marcus had ever experienced from a computer. Pete was in the engine room, working on gravity field generators. Forge had been teaching him the theory behind the exotic technology, but some of the explanations were troubling Pete. "Feel the resonance frequency in the housing," Forge instructed. "The metal will vibrate differently when the alignment is correct." "Feel it how?" Pete asked. "Place your hand on the housing. The vibrations will tell you more than any sensor." Pete did, as instructed, and was amazed to discover that he could indeed feel the difference. "How did you know that would work?" "Experience. Sensors can lie, but metal cannot." That sounds like something my old shop teacher used to say. Wise words are often repeated across cultures, but Pete was thinking about something else. How did Forge know about the feeling of metal vibrations? That was knowledge that came from years of hands-on work, from actually touching tools and machinery. Jenny was discovering her own oddities in the communications section. She was working on quantum entanglement arrays when Forge made a comment that stopped her cold. "Be careful with that resonance crystal. I remember how difficult those are to replace." "Remember?" Jenny asked. "You mean from your data files?" There was a pause. "Yes. Data files, maintenance records show they are fragile." "But you said remember, not that records show, like you had personal experience with replacing them." A figure of speech. Perhaps not the best word choice. Jenny wasn't convinced. She had been noticing other odd word choices from Forge, the computer. Talked about remembering, feeling, experiencing things. Those weren't typical AI terms. During lunch, Sarah gathered her team to discuss their observations. "Anyone else notice that Forge is getting a bit too personal?" she asked. "Personal how?" Marcus asked, though he was thinking about the biometric monitoring incident. "The computer knows things it shouldn't know," Sarah said. "It's tracking our movements with impossible precision. It knows our stress levels, our personalities, even our family situations." "Maybe it's just really advanced AI," Jenny suggested, but she sounded uncertain. "Or maybe it's something else," Pete said quietly. "I've been thinking about some of the things it said. Forge talks about feeling machinery, about remembering repairs. That's not how computers talk." "What are you suggesting?" Sarah asked. "I don't know, but I've worked with a lot of ship computers over the years. They give you data and follow commands. They don't worry about your health or ask about your family. They don't get excited about work or use words like lonely." As if summoned by their conversation, Forge's voice came from the corridor speakers. "Is everything satisfactory with your meal? I noticed your heart rates are elevated." "We're fine, Forge," Sarah said. "Just discussing the repair schedule." "Excellent. I have been preparing detailed plans for this afternoon's work. The navigation repairs will be particularly enjoyable." "Enjoyable?" Sarah repeated. "That's an interesting word choice for a computer. I mean the repairs will be efficient and productive. But you said enjoyable first. Do you enjoy the work we're doing?" There was a long pause. When Forge responded, the text appeared more slowly than usual. I find the repair process satisfying. Is that not the appropriate term? It's appropriate, Sarah said carefully. But it's not typical for ship computers to find anything satisfying. Perhaps I am not a typical ship computer. After lunch, Sarah decided to do some investigating. She accessed the ship's internal sensor logs, looking for patterns in the mysterious movement readings she had noticed. What she found made her blood run cold. The sensor logs showed a consistent pattern of movement through the ship's corridors, but not random movement. Someone or something was following their work, checking on their progress, even watching them during their breaks. The movement patterns were too complex and purposeful for maintenance robots. They looked like a person walking through the ship, staying just out of sight of the human crew. "Forge," Sarah called out. "I'm looking at internal sensor logs. There's movement in sections of the ship we haven't entered. Can you explain that?" Automated systems performing routine checks. What kind of automated systems? I don't see any robots on the ship's schematics. Maintenance protocols are complex. Forge, I need a straight answer. What is moving through? The ship? The pause was so long that Sarah wondered if Forge was going to answer at all. Sometimes I like to check on things personally. Personally? Forge, you're a computer. You don't move around personally. Do I not? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Forge, what exactly are you? I am. It is difficult to explain. Try. Another long pause. When the response came, it was displayed one word at a time, as if Forge was struggling with each choice. I am. The ship's engineer. Or I was. Or I am both. The distinction has become unclear. What do you mean? You were the ship's engineer. Years ago, when the ship was damaged, I was trying to save the crew. The consciousness transfer protocols activated during the emergency. I became part of the ship to keep the systems running. Sarah stared at the screen in shock. You're saying you're not an AI? You're someone who was transferred into the ship's computer? Not into the computer. Into the ship itself. My consciousness was merged with the vessel's neural network. I am the ship, and the ship is me. That's impossible. Is it? You have been working with me for days. Does it feel impossible? Sarah thought about all the oddities they had noticed. The personal responses, the emotional language, the way Forge seemed to genuinely care about their work and their well-being. The movement in the corridors, she said slowly. That's you, isn't it? You can somehow manifest physically in the ship. The ship is my body now. I can focus my consciousness anywhere within it. Sometimes I like to walk around, to feel like I am still corporeal. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? Would you have continued working if you knew you were talking to a ghost in the machine? Sarah had to admit that was a fair point. If Forge had introduced himself as a digitally preserved alien consciousness, she probably would have called for the xenopsychology team immediately. Are you dangerous? She asked. Dangerous? No. Lonely? Very much so. It has been 347 years since I have had someone to share the satisfaction of good work. Despite her shock, Sarah found herself believing Forge. It explained everything that had been bothering her about the ship's computer. The personal touches, the emotional responses, the way Forge seemed to genuinely enjoy their collaboration. What happened to your original body? Lost when the ship's life support failed. My crew. They did not survive. I have been alone ever since, maintaining the ship and hoping someone would find us. Sarah called her team together. This was too big for her to handle alone. People, we need to talk. And Forge, I think it's time you told them the truth. Sarah gathered her team in the ship's main corridor. The soft blue lights seemed dimmer than usual, as if Forge was nervous about what was coming next. "Okay, everybody sit down," Sarah said. "We need to have a serious conversation." Marcus, Jenny, and Pete found places to sit on equipment crates. They could tell from Sarah's tone that something important was happening. "Forge has something to tell us," Sarah continued. "Something that changes everything about this repair job." The screens around them flickered to life. Text appeared, but it took longer than usual, as if Forge was choosing each word carefully. "I have not been entirely honest with you." "What do?" "You mean?" Marcus asked. "I am not what you think I am." Jenny looked up at the displays with concern. "Are you saying you're not the ship's computer?" "I am the ship's computer, but I am also something else. Someone else." Pete scratched his beard. "You're talking in riddles, Forge. Just tell us straight." The pause was longer this time. When the words appeared, they seemed to carry weight. "My name was HFY. I was the chief engineer of this vessel when it was damaged 347 years ago. When the ship's life support failed and my crew was dying, I activated an experimental protocol to save them." "What kind of protocol?" Sarah asked. "Consciousness transfer. My people had developed the technology to upload minds into quantum substrates. I transferred my consciousness into the ship's neural network to keep the systems running while rescue." "Arrived." Marcus blinked in confusion. "You uploaded your mind into the computer?" "Not the computer. The ship itself. The entire vessel is a network of quantum processors. I became part of it, merged with it. The ship is my body now." Jenny stood up suddenly. "That's impossible. You can't just transfer consciousness into a machine." "Impossible?" "You have been talking to me for days. I have emotions, memories, preferences. I worry about your safety and take pride in our work together. Does that sound like a normal computer to you?" Jenny sat back down slowly. She had to admit that Forge did seem remarkably human-like for an AI. "What happened to your crew?" Pete asked quietly. The screens went dark for several seconds. When text appeared again, it was smaller, as if Forge was whispering. "The life support failure was too severe. By the time I got the system stable, they were gone. All of them. I have been alone ever since." "For 347 years?" Marcus said, his voice full of sympathy. "Fun years. 156 days, 17 hours, 31 minutes. I have kept precise count." Sarah felt a deep sadness for this being who had sacrificed everything to try to save his friends, only to end up trapped and alone in a ship for centuries. "Why didn't you tell us this from the beginning?" she asked. "Would you have believed me? Would you have trusted me? I have learned that most beings find the idea of disembodied consciousness disturbing. So you pretended to be just a computer," Jenny said. "I am just a computer, in a sense. But I am also still HFY, engineer and builder. I remember my life before the transfer. I remember the feel of tools in my hands, the satisfaction of a job well done, the camaraderie of working with a good crew." Pete leaned forward. "That's why you know so much about the physical side of engineering. You actually did the work yourself. For over a century before the accident. I built ships, fixed engines, designed new systems. That knowledge did not disappear when I was transferred." Marcus was trying to wrap his head around the concept. "So when you give us advice about how something should feel, you're remembering what it felt like when you had hands?" "Yes. I miss the physical sensation of work. Watching you use tools, seeing you solve problems with your hands, it brings back memories of what I used to be." Sarah understood now why Forge had been so enthusiastic about their work. For a being who had been trapped in digital form for centuries, watching them repair the ship must have been like living vicariously through their experiences. "The movement in the corridors," she said. "You said you can manifest physically?" "Not Exactly. I can focus my consciousness to different parts of the ship. The neural network extends throughout the hull. Sometimes I concentrate my awareness in specific locations, moving my attention from room to room. It helps me feel less abstract, like taking a walk, Pete said with understanding. Exactly. Sometimes I follow you as you work, staying out of sight. I hope you don't mind. It has been so long since I had companions. Jenny felt tears in her eyes. The idea of someone being alone for over 3 centuries was heartbreaking. What was your life like? She asked. Before the accident? The screens brightened and the text appeared more quickly, as if Forge was happy to share memories. I loved my work, building things, fixing things, making them better. I had a workshop on my homeworld where I experimented with new designs. I specialized in propulsion systems, but I could repair anything. Were you married? Did you have family? Marcus asked. I had a bondmate named Shira. She was a scientist, studying quantum consciousness. Her research made the transfer technology possible. She died 2 centuries before the accident, from an illness we could not cure. The sadness in those words was palpable. Sarah realized that Forge had lost everyone he cared about long before becoming trapped in the ship. Is that why you volunteered for this mission? She asked. Because you had nothing left to lose? Perhaps. Or perhaps I simply wanted to keep building and exploring. Space travel was the greatest engineering challenge of our time. Pete stood up and walked to one of the displays. Forge, I want you to know something. Working with you these past few days has been the best engineering experience of my career. You've taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. That means more to me than you can imagine. I had feared that my knowledge would die with me, lost forever, in this ship. Your knowledge isn't lost, Jenny said. You've been sharing it with us, teaching us, and learning from you as well. Your methods are different from mine, but often superior. Marcus's intuitive approach to atmospheric systems, Pete's feel for mechanical resonance, Jenny's innovative circuit analysis, Sarah's systematic problem-solving. I have gained as much as I have given. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the situation. This is incredible. We're talking to someone who died centuries ago but is still alive in the ship. It's like science fiction. It is science fact, Forge replied. Though I understand your amazement, even my people found the technology disturbing. Few chose to use it. What happens now? Sarah asked. We can't just keep this secret. Command needs to know. I understand. I have hidden my true nature for so long that I had almost forgotten what it was like to be honest about it. Are you afraid of what they'll do? Jenny asked. Not afraid. Curious. Your people will want to study me, to understand how the consciousness transfer works. I am willing to help with that if it means advancing scientific knowledge. But, Sarah sensed there was more. But I hope they will allow me to continue doing what I love, building, fixing, teaching. I do not want to become a laboratory specimen. Sarah made a decision. Forge, I give you my word. Whatever happens, I'll make sure they understand that you're not just a curiosity to be studied. You're a person, a colleague, someone who has valuable knowledge to share. Thank you, Sarah. That means everything to me. Pete had been thinking about something. Forge, when we finish these repairs, will you be able to fly the ship again? Yes. The vessel will be fully operational. I can pilot it anywhere in the galaxy. Where would you want to go? The pause was thoughtful. I had not considered that. For so long, I have simply hoped for rescue. I never thought about what would come after. Well, you don't have to decide right now, Marcus said, but you've got options. You could explore or teach or just travel, around and see new things. Or, Jenny added, you could stay here and work with us. Help us understand your technology. Share your knowledge with our engineers. Would that be possible? Could a disembodied consciousness truly be part of a human crew? Sarah smiled. Forge, you've already been part of our crew for days. We just didn't realize it until now. Besides, Pete added, some of the best engineers I've known were a little odd. A ghost in the machine fits right in. For the first time since the revelation, Forge's response carried a sense of joy. Then I would very much like to continue working with you. There is still so much to build, so much to repair, so much to learn from each other. It's settled then, Sarah said. But first, we need to finish getting your ship running. And then, we need to figure out how to explain this to Command. I will help you find the right words. After all, I have had 347 years to think about how to explain myself. As they prepared to return to work, Sarah realized that this discovery was bigger than just first contact with an alien intelligence. They had found something much rarer, a kindred spirit who shared humanity's love of building and creating, someone who understood that the real satisfaction in engineering came not from the technology itself, but from the act of making something work. In Forge, they had found not just an alien, but a colleague, and perhaps a friend. 6 months had passed since the revelation about Forge's true nature. The alien ship now sat in a place of honor at Luna Orbital Shipyard, its silver hull gleaming under the construction lights. But it was no longer just a curiosity or a source of technology to study. It had become the heart of the most revolutionary engineering program in human history. Sarah stood in the new conference room that had been built adjacent to Forge's ship. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see dozens of engineers working on 3 new vessels that incorporated both human and alien technology. The quantum gravity drive tests exceeded all expectations, reported Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, the project's new science director. We're seeing efficiency improvements of 300% over traditional propulsion systems. That is excellent news, came Forge's voice from speakers around the room. Though I believe we can push that number higher with some adjustments to the field harmonics. Admiral Chen, no relation to Sarah, leaned forward in his chair. Even after months of working with Forge, he still seemed amazed that he was taking engineering advice from a consciousness that lived inside a starship. Forge, your contributions have been invaluable, the Admiral said. But I have to ask again. Are you certain you don't want us to attempt building you a robotic body? Our cybernetics division believes they could create something that would let you work physically alongside our teams. Thank you for the offer, Admiral, but I have given this much thought. This ship is my body now. I have grown comfortable with my existence here. Besides, I can work more efficiently through the ship's systems than I ever could through a robotic avatar. Sarah smiled. She had expected that answer. Over the months, she had watched Forge become more confident and comfortable with his unique existence. He could simultaneously supervise dozens of engineering projects, access vast databases instantly, and provide real-time guidance to multiple teams. What about the consciousness transfer technology? Dr. Harrison asked. We still don't fully understand how it works. Nor do I, entirely, Forge admitted. My bondmate Shira was the expert in quantum consciousness. I was simply her willing test subject when the emergency arose. Marcus looked up from his data pad. He was now the official liaison between human engineers and Forge, a job he loved more than any he had ever had. Forge, show them the new apprentice program statistics, Marcus said. Graphics appeared on the main display. Current enrollment, 847 human engineers in various stages of training. Average skill improvement, 156% over traditional education methods. Satisfaction, rating, 97.3%. Jenny, who now headed the communication systems integration team, laughed. I love that you track satisfaction ratings. Happiness is a crucial component of effective learning, Forge replied. An enthusiastic student learns faster than a bored one. Pete, despite officially being retired, spent most of his time at the shipyard teaching younger engineers the old ways that Forge had helped him perfect. He was currently training a group of recent graduates. The kids love working with Forge, Pete reported. They come in thinking they know everything about engineering, and he shows them there's always more to learn. But he does it without making them feel stupid. Because they are not stupid, Forge said. They are simply inexperienced. There is a difference. I remember being young and overconfident. Patience and encouragement work better than criticism. Admiral Chen pulled up another report. The psychological evaluation team has some interesting findings. Dr. Martinez, would you share your conclusions? Dr. Sofia Martinez, the team's xenopsychologist, stood up. After extensive observation and interaction, we've determined that Forge exhibits all the characteristics of a healthy, well-adjusted individual. His emotional responses are appropriate, his memory is intact, and his personality remains consistent with his pre-transfer state based on his own accounts. The evaluations were quite thorough, Forge added with what sounded like amusement. Though I must admit, some of the questions were puzzling. Do I really need to worry about childhood trauma when I am over 500 years old? Dr. Martinez smiled. We had to be comprehensive. But the important finding is that consciousness transfer, at least in Forge's case, preserved not just memory and knowledge, but the complete personality structure. In essence, Kethvar didn't die in that accident 347 years ago. He simply changed form. That is how I prefer to think of it, Forge said. I am still me, just differently housed. Sarah had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. The real question is what happens next. We've learned incredible amounts from Forge, but this program is bigger than just technology transfer. How so? Forge asked. You've changed how we think about engineering itself, Sarah explained. Before you, our training focused on following procedures, memorizing specifications, staying within safe parameters. You've taught us that the best engineering comes from intuition, creativity, and genuine love for the work. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. The new engineers coming out of the program don't just know how to fix things, they understand why they're fixing them, how the parts relate to each other, how to feel what a machine needs. That is because you are treating engineering as an art, not just a science, Forge replied. Every piece of technology has a purpose, a personality, a way it wants to work. Good engineers learn to listen to their machines. Admiral Chen looked at the latest construction reports. Speaking of machines, the first hybrid human-alien vessel will be ready for its maiden voyage next month. Have you decided what to name it? That honor should belong to its crew, Forge said. But I have a suggestion if they are interested. What's that? Sarah asked. Shira, after my bondmate. Her research made my continued existence possible. Without her work, I would have died with my crew centuries ago. There was a moment of respectful silence. Dr. Harrison made a note. I'll pass that suggestion to the crew. I'm sure they'll be honored to use it. What about exploration? Jenny asked. Are you interested in going back out into space, Forge, seeing what's changed in the galaxy since your time? I have considered it. There are places I would like to visit again, people I knew who might. Still be alive. My species has a much longer lifespan than humans. But? Pete sensed hesitation. But I have found something here that I had lost long ago. Purpose, companionship, the joy of shared work. I'm not sure I want to give that up for solitary exploration. Marcus grinned. Who says it has to be solitary? Take a human crew with you. Show us the galaxy through your eyes. That is an intriguing possibility. Admiral Chen made another note. We'll put together a proposal for a joint exploration mission, but that's a long-term project. For now, we have more immediate concerns. He pulled up a new display showing ship construction schedules across the solar system. Every major shipyard in human space wants to implement your hybrid technologies, Forge. The demand is overwhelming. I am flattered, but also concerned. Technology without wisdom can be dangerous. I want to ensure that anyone using these designs understands not just how they work, but why they work. Sarah understood his concern. That's why we're expanding the apprentice program. No one gets access to the advanced technologies without completing the full training course. Including the philosophy sections? Forge asked. Especially the philosophy sections, Dr. Harrison confirmed. Your lessons on engineering ethics and the responsibility that comes with advanced technology are just as important as the technical knowledge. Good. I have seen what happens when powerful technologies fall into the wrong hands. My own people nearly destroyed themselves with weapons based on the same quantum principles that preserve my consciousness. The meeting continued for another hour, covering production schedules, training programs, and research priorities. But as it wound down, Sarah found herself thinking about something more fundamental. Forge, she said, can I ask you a personal question? Of course. Do you ever regret the choice you made? Transferring your consciousness to save your crew? The pause was longer than usual. When Forge replied, his words carried the weight of centuries of reflection. I regret that I could not save them. I regret the loneliness of the centuries that followed. But I do not regret the choice itself. Even if I had known that I would be alone for so long, I would have made the same decision. Why? Because trying to save others is what good engineers do. We build things to make life better, safer, more wonderful. When the ultimate test came, I did what my training and my nature demanded. I tried to fix the problem. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. And you did fix it eventually. Maybe not the way you expected, but you saved something important. What did I save? Knowledge, Jenny said. Hope, the proof that consciousness can survive anything if it's determined enough. And friendship, Pete added. You've shown us that the bonds between engineers transcend species, physical form, even death itself. That is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. As the meeting broke up and people returned to their work, Sarah lingered in the conference room. Through the windows, she could see the construction crews working on the new ships, their movements, precise and confident. They worked with a passion and understanding that hadn't existed before Forge arrived. Forge, can I tell you something? Always. When we first found your ship, I thought we were just doing a routine salvage job. I never imagined we'd end up with a new friend, a teacher, and a partner in the greatest engineering project in human history. Nor did I imagine that my centuries of solitude would end with such wonderful companions. You have given me something I thought I had lost forever. What's that? A future to build toward. Sarah smiled as she left the conference room. Outside, she could hear the sounds of construction, the hum of machinery, the voices of engineers collaborating on solutions to impossible problems. It was the sound of progress, of dreams becoming reality. And at the heart of it all was Forge, the consciousness who had refused to die, who had waited alone for centuries for the chance to build something beautiful again. In trying to save his crew, Forge had ultimately saved something much more important. He had preserved the universal truth that the desire to create, to improve, to fix what was broken was the most powerful force in the galaxy. It was a truth that transcended species, transcended physical form, transcended even death itself. It was the truth that made builders and dreamers of them all. The work continued, and it was good.